So this is an overview of how I did this screw. This is the topology that the screw has before being dynameshed. Well, it's inside 3ds Max, but I'll just call it dynamesh. So if I turn the modifier on, it will basically dynamesh and smooth in one go. Because I'm using this Gaussian filter here, there's a bunch of different others. I mainly use this one, and it takes care of all the intersections, makes it nice and smooth. Deletes like all the inner faces that are not actually needed, because since this is a sort of a voxelizer modifier, it creates a watertight mesh and deletes everything inside of that watertight mesh. So if I turn this off, you'll actually notice that the threads are going inside, but with the VDB remesh, it takes care of that stuff. So if I turn my booleans off, it's basically just a subtraction on the top, and I'm attaching the threads here. And then for the main screw, this is essentially just the spline that I drew on the side. I have these two vertices selected because I'm using a spline chamfer, so that I can control the roundness of these particular vertices. Then I'll just run a lathe using 64 sides, and then I am using turbo smooth set to smoothing groups, and then I have my booleans. You have different modes. Instead of using the union for the threads, I'm just using an attach, because since the remesher deletes the inner faces, then I don't need to worry about having like perfectly joined geometry. For the screw head hole, it's just a subtraction. But let's take a look at these two operands. So for the screw head hole, it's possibly a bit overkill, but it's still cool. I essentially have a cross shape, and sort of a smooth half sphere type of situation. I think the only thing important to say is that both these two borders need to have the same amount of segments. Well, not necessarily, you don't actually have to, but the mesh output is going to be much cleaner if you have the same amount of vertices. So I have these two borders selected, and then I'm using this smooth bridge script that essentially creates a connection between the two borders, and then I can set the number of segments that I want for the connection. There's a bunch of other like different options, but I don't think we need to go over this. What I do next is that I use the volume select, where I will use soft selection as well, so that I can get like a soft selection on the bottom that I'm going to relax afterwards. So you'll see that this becomes a bit more relaxed. I actually don't need this here because I was using it for like deleting these top faces and then like capping them afterwards, but I don't actually need to do that now. I'll just put a turbo smooth on top, set to smoothing groups, so that the crease on the top faces gets preserved. What I'll do is I'll just put like a poly select modifier because I want to get rid of the selection, because if you don't clear the selections that are coming from the bottom up, you'll keep all that stuff. So the volume select will still be here, but this way it won't. Right, so we have the top operand. So for the threads, let's go from the let's hide all of this stuff, and we'll go from the bottom. So I'm using a modifier called Elix Pro, an object called Elix Pro. It was made by John Martini. I think I prefer to use this one because it allows me to set the number of sides per revolution. So for example, from here all the way up to here, I know that I'm going to have 30, in this case 24 vertices going from one end to the other. And I don't, you're not really able to have that control with the max default Elix spline. So after this, I will use the conform modifier. I think it's only available in Max 2024 and up. What I do here is I will conform the spline, the helix spline, to the main screw. What I realized while I was doing this is that you can't really conform to the actual screw that you're working on, because the threads are conforming to this mesh, and then they are going to be attached to the same mesh. So you'll have like some sort of recursive dependencies that prevents you from actually doing that. So what I did was I made a copy of my main screw, just the bottom part, and this is the actual mesh that I'm using for the conform. So it's conforming to this mesh. I'm curious how maybe I can relax the threads, because it seems to be like they seem to be having a bit of like up and down here. Let me just try something really quick. There's this plane relax. Let me see. I wonder if because it is indeed relaxed, but it's not being conformed anymore. So perhaps I can just copy and paste on top. And then let me see if it helps with this. Yeah, because I didn't actually notice this before, but there's like some weird, like some vertices from this plane are going like up and down, possibly because of the conform. But this way we're relaxing and reconforming. I can potentially even increase the iterations so that it becomes even smoother. Yeah, this is cool. This is good. Okay, then I will add the sweep modifier. The thing here is that I'm not using the built-in like profiles. I'm using like a custom profile, which is essentially this one. This is the profile that's being like swept along this path. And things to notice is that by default, the X offset is going to be set to 0, meaning that the sweep is going to be inside of the mesh, something like this. So you'll need to adjust this accordingly. And also this is going to be turned off. So if you notice something like this, you'll just basically mirror this to the other side. So you'll click here, and then this gets like flipped to the other side. It is for this part, this is essentially it. Then we'll use poly select, and so this is the part where everything is kind of semi-procedural, but then you'll need to make some slight adjustments. Not really, you're not really modeling, you're just like changing some selections in order for the thing to be like updated properly. So in this case, let's turn this off. In this case, I'm selecting the inside faces of the helix. Since I changed this, let's do this again. I select that first face, and then I'll just double click while Control is pressed. So this is all of the inside faces are selected, and the main reason is because now I'll put another conform modifier, and you'll notice that when this is turned off and when it's turned on, they are being like projected onto the conform mesh. Afterwards, I renamed this because I'm just getting rid of that selection, because selections in Max, they basically travel bottom up, and unless you clear the selections, they'll stay there and can be used by other modifiers. So I'll put another poly select, and this basically clears the selections. I just renamed it this so I know what it's doing. Then I'll put another poly select, and then I'll just have the select a few vertices with soft selection turned on, edge distance turned on, and effect backfacing turned on as well. So essentially, I'm just selecting these two vertices and then with the soft selection, like more vertices are being selected. So what I do afterwards is that I added like a X-form modifier. X-form modifier, you can kind of picture it as if it's a sort of a transformation that you do on vertices that that are not dependent on the geometry. So what I mean is, I can make a quick example. Let's say that I have this box, and I use a volume select. I'll select a bunch of vertices here. So all of these vertices from the front. If I turn on soft selection and use a X-form modifier, I can actually now just drag this to the front. Maybe I'll just rotate and pull this up like this. Maybe I'll pull it to the side. And then twist it like this, for example. So the cool thing about this is that this transformation that I did with Xform is kept if I change the base geometry. So I can be like changing this thing, or maybe add more here, and then remove these. And then if I go to the volume select and I start changing like the soft selection, the transformation that I did is basically kept, even though we changed the geometry. So this is a cool way to kind of like procedurally move vertices around without having to redo the same transformation again whenever you change the underlying geometry. So in this case, after I had these vertices selected with the soft selection, I added the X form, and then I basically scaled the selection inwards and then also moved the vertices like this, so that the the thread basically starts from like inside of the screw, and then it starts to like unwind like this. Again, I clear the selections again, and then do another poly select, well, where I select these 4 vertices, and then I'll do the same thing with X form. Potentially, since I changed the geometry when I added the spline relax, I'll probably I have to tweak this because of that, but it's no big deal. So then I use another poly select and relax this. And I used to have these relax here, but I don't think I actually need this, because if I already did the spline relax at the bottom, this is probably going to look nice. Let's turn the vertices off. Cool, so we can just turn this off, the profile, the conform, and we can just go to the main screw, turn on the turbo smooth, turn on the boolean. The boolean will automatically add the threads and remove the screw head hole. Now we can just turn the VDB remesh on and see the result. Yeah, that spline relax actually did the trick. It's much cleaner than before. There was a bunch of jagged edges here, but now it's very smooth. And like I said, it's not totally procedural, but I can just turn this off, and then let's say that instead of 10 turns, I just want, let's say, 6. I'll just do 6, and I'll just go and check what needs to be changed. Okay, conform, clear selection, select these 2 vertices. Xform is working, clear selections, poly select, select those 2 vertices. It's inside. This is also working. Clear the selections and turbo smooth. We can just like hide this, and then turn on the main screw. Turn on VDB remesh. Now we have a screw with 6 threads or 6 revolutions, 6 turns. This is how it looks.